Good morning and welcome to another coffee tasting. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor, and this morning we are going to be tasting Guatemala Huehuetenango. I personally have been anticipating this coffee tasting. I love Latin American coffees. I love the milk chocolate notes that you traditionally get, or sometimes the dark chocolate with this one that we'll be experiencing with the caramelized sweetness. That's just my typically favorite brew of coffee. So I'm really excited for this particular blend. And then the Guatemala Huehuetenango has a really cool story to tell too. So we're going to explore that today. So with the Guatemala Huehuetenango, it's going to have notes of candied orange, dark chocolate, and graham cracker. So it's going to have some of those darker notes with a little bit of that graham cracker sweetness, but the graham cracker sweetness is going to actually give a tribute to a little bit of that bitterness because there's no actual sugar. So it's just going to have some of those flavor notes that graham cracker have, which when those notes of graham cracker aren't sweetened with sugar, can be a little bit bitter. So this is going to be a little bit on the bitter side of Latin American coffee, but it should be still very, very good. So today we are trying the coffee two different ways. Today we are brewing it on the pour over and the coffee press. And the reason why I like to brew the coffee these two different ways is because we get to explore the different flavor notes that we get from the same blend of coffee, but it's going to have different flavors because of the way it's brewed. And so with the coffee press, we're going to get a lot more of those sediments. It means we're going to taste more of those bitters. While with the pour over, we're going to get more of the candied orange flavors. So we're going to get a little bit more of those citric flavors coming through. And so with our small lot coffees, it's very important to highlight those different flavors that you get because they're small lot coffees. When you get like a core bag of coffee that comes from the entire region of Guatemala, you're going to have a whole bunch of different flavors jam-packed in the bag that you're not going to really be able to tell the different flavors apart from. But with the small lot coffees, we're going to get specific flavors that are adherent from the land that it comes from. So whether or not they grow fruits and stuff or herbs and spices in the general vicinity, that's going to impact the flavor of the coffee because a lot of that stuff makes its way back into the ground to make future fertile soil. And so what goes back into the ground is going to impact the flavor of the coffee. And when you get small lot coffees like this, you're going to really get those flavors that are born from that region. And so that's important to say. Another important part about small lot coffee is the fact that a lot of them have their own processing plants where they wash their beans on site. And that allows them to bypass the middleman in the processing of beans. So what that means is that Starbucks is sourcing the beans directly from the farmers, and so the farmers are able to make more money. So that's another important part about small lot coffee. So we have distinct flavor from the region that the small lot coffees come from, and then we also have the importance of fair trade and farmers being paid the money that they should be paid. So with this particular coffee, I'm going to guess, I don't know yet, but I'm going to guess that I'm going to like the French press more just because this is going to be a lighter roast coffee than the rest of the ones that we've tried. And when I get a light roast coffee, I tend to lean more towards the French press because it gives a little bit more of a bolder flavor, darker flavor. But the darker flavor that I'm looking for with those milk chocolate notes and the caramely sweetness. I'm not a big fan of the earthy, woodsy notes that you get from like Sumatra. And I'm not a big fan of the bright, fruity notes and citrus notes that you get from African coffees. So my favorite region of coffee is the Latin American coffee. So that's why I'm excited to try the Guatemala Huehuetenango. My all-time favorite blend of coffee is a Latin American coffee. It's the Shade Grown Mexico, and we actually have not had Shade Grown Mexico. I haven't seen it on the shelves in years. And my one of my managers, he actually went down to Mexico and he saw it in an airport. And he told me that when he saw it, he thought of me, and he got me a bag of this Shade Grown Mexico, and he brought it back for me. And so I thought that was super cool because at this time, at this point in time, I had only known him for maybe a month and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. And the fact that when he saw this Shade Grown Mexico and went out of his way to buy it for me, um, that was awesome. It impacted me. Um, like I never had someone who I had met so recently do something so nice. Um, so it was at first it was strange to me, but it affected me, and so it was a very pleasant experience. And Justin Myers, if you're watching this video, I want to thank you for that because you helped contribute to my passion for coffee by bringing me that bag of coffee and allowing me to start doing these coffee tastings. And has been a big major step in my coffee journey. That was not part of what I was going to be talking about today, but there you go. So looks like our pour over is ready to be tasted, and our coffee press should just about be ready in a couple moments. So we're going to start it off with the pour over. So like I said, with the pour over, I'm assuming I'm going to get a lot more of those bright acidic notes from the candied orange. Um, and then we'll still get some of those bitters from the dark chocolate and the some like cinnamon or like some sugar sweetness from the graham cracker. So immediately when I smell this coffee, I'm definitely getting that candied orange with the milk or the dark chocolate. Really, it smells really good. This is a really good smelling coffee. Okay, so I'm definitely getting that candied orange, bright acidity on the sides of my tongue, but it's not overwhelming. And then I'm definitely getting that dark chocolate mouthfeel towards the center of my tongue with that graham cracker sweetness. This is a really good cup of coffee. Um, it's very similar to one of the other ones I tried a couple weeks ago, where it almost tasted like M&Ms. This one is not so um, not as chocolatey, but it's up there. This has got some really deep chocolate notes. Really, really good. It washes over your tongue. And then what's nice is now that I've kind of let my palate clear, I'm just getting that uh, slight dark chocolate wash over my tongue that kind of lingers, but it's not too strong. It's just kind of there. It's just sitting on my tongue, just waving hello. That is good. If you guys are returning to the live stream, thank you guys for tuning into the live stream and just returning and checking this out and sharing my passion of coffee. And if you guys are new to the live stream, welcome. I hope you guys are enjoying the coffee tasting so far. And if you guys haven't had a chance, go ahead and support this channel by hitting the like and subscribe button and hit that bell notification if you guys want to get any notifications for whenever I go live. That would be awesome. It would be greatly appreciated and really support this channel so that I can continue to do so in unforeseen events. So let's go get this French press going. So with the French press, we're going to see a lot more of those dark chocolate notes with that graham cracker sweetness. But with the amount of sediment, that graham cracker sweetness isn't going to be nearly as sweet. It's actually going to attribute to that bitter flavor that we're going to get from that dark chocolate. So the candied orange is going to take a little bit of a back seat in the coffee press, and we're going to get a lot more of those bitters just from the sediment. And so I think I'm going to like the pour over more than the French press on this one, actually. But we will find out. All right, so immediately, right off the bat, I'm getting a lot more of that dark chocolate smell. But then I do get that candied orange scent, that bright acidic flavor that's making its way through that milk chocolate or the dark chocolate smell. So that's a good sign. Wow, that is surprisingly light. That is a really good French press cup of coffee. The only difference between the French press and the pour over right now is the lingering effects. So right now I'm getting a lot more of that bitter dark chocolate flavor that's impacting my tongue right now. So now that my palate is clear, I would expect most of the flavor to go away. But right now in the center of my tongue, I got that bitter dark flavor that's just sitting there. Um, it's almost overpowering, but it's not nearly as intense as some coffees would be. If you get like that roasty, woodsy flavor, and it's impacting the tongue, and you kind of like need something to wash it down. With this, it's doable. It's actually kind of like a nice dark bitter flavor. And then you get that if you keep sipping on the coffee, then you get that bright acidic complement of the candied orange from the initial sip. Yeah, so the with the French press, definitely more bitter, a lot more of that dark chocolate coming through, less of that graham cracker sweetness. Well, so the graham cracker sweetness isn't so sweet anymore. So that's what's going on is like with the amount of sediment that's going on, the bitters of the graham cracker flavor is going to impact the bitters of the dark chocolate flavor. See, with the pour over, we're not getting as much sediment, so those bitters aren't as intense, and so it almost tastes sweet. Especially if I were to go from this, where it's very bitter, really strong bitters that really hold onto the tongue and linger, and then go back to this pour over, or yeah, the pour over. The pour over is actually going to taste much sweeter than I had originally tried it the first go, because now my tongue is getting used to these bitters that linger on, and I'm actually going to uh, do that right now. All right, so we've got those dark bitters that like to hold on really strong. You get that slight acidic bite in the very first sip of the French press, but that those bitters take over immediately. Um, they they pretty much just push that bright acidity out, and they're just like, this is our turf. Oh yeah. So with the bright acidity on this one, you get a lot more of that candied orange, and then because the French press has so much more of those bitters of the dark chocolate and the graham cracker coming through, um, it hardly tastes bitter at all anymore on the pour over. It's almost as if it's just like a clean citrusy cup of coffee. That is really good. I really like the pour over on this one. The French press on the Huehuetenango is definitely doable, but I definitely like the pour over more. That's my favorite. So, with the Huehuetenango, it has a really cool story to tell, and that story involves agricultural science. So, this particular bag of beans is this region's first crop of the rust resistant varietal. It is Marayesa. Marsellesa is the name of the varietal of this blend of beans. And so what this is it's a blend of the Arabica beans and Robusto beans. And so typically when Starbucks sells beans, they sell just Arabica beans, which is grown at a higher elevation, higher quality beans. But because they grow at a higher elevation, they typically see like a colder climate. Um, but because with global warming and weather changes and stuff like that, they're starting to see warmer weather, and with this warmer weather comes diseases. And so there's this disease called the rust disease that is impacting a lot of farmers in Latin America and other parts of the world as well. But right now, it's impacting Latin America so big where entire families are losing out on farms. And when a family loses out on a farm, that means they've lost their money for the year. Like that's their income for pretty much the entire year. So they've got to come up with other ways to make money. I mean, they probably have other farms as well, but this is probably a major chunk of their economy uh, being lost to a disease because of global warming. And so with this particular bag, it's a huge step forward for farmers in Latin America in making sure that their farms are sustainable and that they can continue to grow coffee. And so, what this Marsellesa varietal is it's a blend of it's blended with Robusto beans because the Robusto naturally grow at a lower elevation, and because they grow at a lower elevation, they're already gonna they will have already been introduced to a warmer climate. And because they're introduced to warmer climate already, they have evolved to gain the resistance to the rust disease. So what scientists have done, and a lot of this research has taken place in the Alsacia farm in Costa Rica, where scientists are splicing Arabica beans and Robusto beans. And what that means by splicing, if any of you guys don't know, is they pretty much take two branches of two different trees and they let it grow together. And as they let it grow together, it grows into its own tree and then it produces its own fruit. And then as we get a tree that's been spliced and starts producing its own fruit, we start to see qualities from both trees in the fruit that it possesses or produces, and then we can in turn plant the seeds from the tree, replant them, and then create the hybrid. And so what scientists have done is they've engineered through splicing trees together to create an Arabica bean that has Robusto rust resistant qualities. And this is important because in a world where global warming is happening and we have climate change, and areas of the world are warming up and some parts are cooling down, we have to adapt. And with the ability to have, with science on our side, we have the ability to adapt at real time with the world. Whereas if this were ancient times and things were like this to happen, we would see mass extinction events of floral and fauna, and other things like that. But because we have science and technology on our side, we're able to help nature progress along a little bit faster. That way, we can keep the supply up, and then at the same time, we're just adapting with a changing world. And the best part about this kind of science is it's not limited to just the coffee world. You can take the same kind of science and apply it to tomatoes, corn, any kind of produce that we start to see like some kind of diseases in them that's caused by global warming or any kind of like natural effect of like the lay of the land, like something happening like flooding or it gets too cold. We can take properties from other things and apply them into other things and help them evolve to survive in a world today. Because there are many kinds of fruits that don't exist today that existed thousands and thousands of years ago but didn't survive evolutional change. I mean, there might have been a fruit that required the 80% oxygen that our atmosphere once had. And then once we started to lose that oxygen, the a lot of those plants died out. So it's very interesting that we can uh, use science to help us with this, and it's very important too because helping these farmers out and making sure that they're able to make their money and sustain their lives is very important. And the fact that this is going to be a main thing for humans to thrive in the future is one step forward for agricultural science and what we're capable of doing, especially when we start moving into space and other things like that. We're going to learn how to adapt our agricultural science to start growing in sub-zero gravity and well, not sub-zero, but zero g, and also in low earth, low gravity habitation. So areas that might be like that have might have the gravity of the moon in like space habitats. Things are going to grow differently there, and so we're going to learn a lot about that. And so this is kind of like connected to that, but we're not quite there yet. So we're taking those steps in agricultural science to learn how to um, adapt traits into or adopt traits into certain plants so that they can thrive and survive in their habitats. So I want to thank everyone for joining me in today's coffee tasting. Today was a very important coffee tasting because of the agricultural science and in a world that we're going into right now. So it's very important. And then another thing, this is the very first bag, very first crop of this rust-resistant tree, and Starbucks is made an initiative to deliver over 100,000 coffee trees to farmers in Latin America through its initiative of selling bags of coffee in their stores, and for every bag they're supplying trees to Latin American farmers so that they can have sustainable farms in a changing landscape and in a changing environment. And so that's what's so great about being a part of of this company. And then whether or not you guys are an employee or a customer, you guys are a part of the company, and you guys take part in helping people around the world continue to grow coffee. And by allowing them to continue to grow coffee, they are making the money that they need to live. And you know that they're making the money that they need to live because Starbucks is also dedicated to fair trade and making sure that their farmers, each and every one of their farmers, are receiving that fair wage and are properly being paid for their work. And so, just by being part of the company, you impact other people around the world, whether you're a customer or a barista. And I want to thank all you guys for being a part of it. And the only way you guys would know that you're a part of it is by joining me with these live streams. So thanks again, everyone, for joining me on today's live stream. I will see you this Friday when we'll be doing another coffee tasting of the this month's highlighted coffee. We're going to be tasting the Cafe Verona. It has its own reasons for being named Cafe Verona, but because of the time of year that it's highlighted and the naming, I kind of like to associate it with Latin America's um, acquisition of the coffee bean because it has to do with a love affair. And we all know that Verona is one of the cities where Romeo and Juliet took place in Shakespeare. So I, on a personal level, think that the reason why it's called Verona is because of the coffee culture and the possible stories of love affairs that took place in the um, exports of unroasted coffee beans. So thanks again, everyone. I know I've said thank you 3 times now, but it is okay. So thank you, everyone, for joining me in today's live coffee tasting. Join me this Friday as we'll be tasting Cafe Verona. Have a great day. Thanks again.